Welcome to the podcast, Rafael. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about you?
Very well. I am here today with Rafael Bordoni, who is the developer of two games that I have now played. The first one I played was Charge Kid, which I found on Nintendo Switch, and I bought it, and I loved it. And then Rafael and I did an interview about Charge Kid, and we've been in contact. We played a game simultaneously called The Talos Principle, and we discussed that at length. But today, we're here to discuss Rafael's newest game, which is called To Shed New Light. So, Rafael, why don't you do us a favor and give us the elevator pitch for what is To Shed New Light?
So, To Shed New Light was a game that me and a friend, we made for a game jam, and the theme was Everything Changes. So, right as the theme got announced, I had this idea of like changing the perspectives, because at least like in real life, whenever you have something like some problem or whatever, if you if you try to put yourself in the shoes of someone else, whenever you try to look anything through someone else's perspective, or to just any different lenses that you apply to yourself, things change. And I kind of wanted to make a game about that. And in the end, the game turned out to become like a puzzle game where you can look through each level through different, how can I say, angles, maybe. Like there's the camera, and then you change the camera's position, and everything changes. That's the game.
Okay, so the way you started describing that makes it sound like a very, like, it's a massive theme, right? That's like across all cultures. People, I feel, often, it's like empathy, right? It's like you put yourself in someone else's shoes, change your perspective. But the game itself, and this is not, I'm not saying anything negative at all when I say this, but the game itself is relatively simple, right?
Yes.
So maybe can you give us like a description of like what's the pipeline for that big idea filtered down into what we actually see when we play the game?
Well, basically, we have the initial idea, and then we start like building assets, building code. And as this process go on, at least in my mind, I start to have like ideas of the first level, the second level, the third level. How can I introduce each mechanic? At least this is how I operate, this is how I work. And as like with most games, I think, at least I'm betting that this is what happens with every developer. We have this initial idea, we have this initial game design, and it's not good. And then we change it. And then it's probably not good again, and we change it again and again until it's good. And yeah, basically, like, as I said, it was about like empathy somehow. And in my mind, the initial pitch of the game, the initial way the game would like look, each point that you would that you would put the camera on would be someone else, would be a person, a character. But as we were building the game, I thought, I would have to model. I'm not very good at 3D modeling, by the way. I'm trying to work with what I had there. So I was like, yes, so if I really wanted to make it look like this, then I would probably have to model a lot of different characters. I'd have to model the place where they would be. And I was starting to get nervous, and, overscoping is a real problem between game developers. So I was like, I'm going to change the theme a little bit. And there was ways to keep the design, the mechanic without the theme. And that's pretty much what happened during development. Of course, the mechanics itself changed. Initially, you wouldn't have total freedom with the camera that you had in the end. And I think it's better the way it turned out. But yeah, that's pretty much how it kind of happened in the end. It's funny because as I was doing that, as I was like thinking and making the models, the 3D models, I realized that, at least like creatively speaking, I really like psychedelic things. I'm into this kind of stuff. So the game ended up to be like this, not because it was supposed to be like this from the start, but because I felt like doing psychedelic stuff. I don't know. It's kind of personal, I guess.
Right. So you mentioned psychedelic. I think visually the game instantly stands out as being it's very simple, but I would even go as far as to say it's quite beautiful. You know what I mean? I think like the general look, it's like a purple background with kind of like stars, kind of cosmic looking things. And then you basically move a circle around on these lines, and in changing the perspective, it allows you to connect, maybe the line your circle is on, maybe that'll allow you to connect with another line that then you move things around, and it allows you to connect with the black hole, which is like the ending. Basically, the whole point of the game is to get the little circle, the little ring, I guess you could call it, into the little black hole. So how did the visual, I know nothing about coding, but how did like the visual aesthetic come about? Like, how do you, this is a really dumb question, but I'm not afraid to ask it. How difficult would it be to simply change the color of the background? Is it just like, how do you change the color of the background in coding?
It's very easy. It depends on your engine of choice, but I believe most engines, they just have there's this pipeline in order to render stuff on the screen. That's basically what shaders are. It's the code that your GPU will read in order to render. So it's basically just writing a simple shader. The idea of the shader is that it kind of reads, it runs the code that you wrote for each pixel on the screen. There's a little bit more to that. I'm not going to go into details, but yeah, basically like you have to write a code that you read the screen, and then you do some math with the color that you read on each pixel. And yeah, that's simple as that.
Okay, so if it's so simple, I'm curious, like, as the creator of the game, did you try it out in different colors and decide that purple was the best, or did you know that this purple color you have in the game would be the aesthetic, the final aesthetic from the beginning?
Kind of like the opposite. For some reason, I don't know exactly why, I just put that purple there, and everything else changed the color except the purple. Like, I was trying to make things look good on top of that purple. Maybe I could have, I don't know, just I was just doing stuff. I was just making the models, writing the shaders, and I was trying to make them look good, and everything changes.
True. Yeah. So while you're coding, this is a dumb question too. While you're coding, can you see at the same time visually what you're doing, or do you have to code and then look?
You code, and then the engine automatically compiles. It automatically compiles your code, and it shows on screen.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's very important. If it didn't show it on screen, I don't know, would be weird.
Right. Okay, so I'm curious about, we've basically established that it's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
I'm curious about creating the actual puzzles. Like, I've interviewed other people who make puzzle games, but so maybe I know the answer coming, but how do you determine the puzzles? Like, how do you build a puzzle as a designer? Do you do it on paper first, or do you just code until it looks right? Just maybe walk me through that process.
It's kind of like making a drawing, at least in my opinion. Like, game level design, in my opinion, is a little bit of an art and a science. Maybe, at least for me, it's more art than science, I think, because I'm just expressing myself, kind of like when I told you that when I'm starting to code the mechanics of the game, like I need the mechanics in order to make the levels first. So as I was coding the stuff, I was always like thinking, how would be the first level? How would be the second level? So as I was coding, I already had like some ideas of how those first levels would look like. And as I was ready to make them, I kind of made them, but it was just the first level. So the next levels, I was like, how can I follow up that? I just start messing around, because for my process, what I usually build, I kind of build like a way to make levels much easier. Like, imagine like you're on, I don't know, Photoshop, and then you click the brush option, and you just click on the screen and it will paint. That's kind of what I do. I made some kind of a brush that would do these lines. They would draw the lines. They would position the ring, the black hole, the walls. That's pretty much how I make my stuff. and it makes the level design process really intuitive, I would say, and it lets me be much more expressive, lets me try out things. It lets me, like, I make the levels and then I test them, and instantly I see, nah, that doesn't work. And then I change it, and then I try it again. I'm like, nah, that's not good. And then I keep changing. It's very important for me, at least, to make these tools in order to create the levels. Without it, I wouldn't make those levels as good as they are. At least I think they're like somewhat good.
I think they're great. I'm curious, like, so the ring, the thing that you control, the thing that you're trying to get into the black circle at the end, I found that it changes colors, right?
Yeah.
So I could never quite figure out why or how, or if I was doing something to cause it to change colors. Why is that happening? What's the thought process behind that?
It's just a simple, it changes its colors on its own. I think there's nothing you can do to change the way it changes colors.
Okay.
At least the way I coded it. It's
Right.
not supposed to change colors to depend on whatever you're doing. It does, however, like each time you click it when you're holding the little circle, it will shine brighter and it will do a little noise. You might have noticed.
So that's really cool. So that's a thing that I've often thought about, not just with video games, but with any kind of, usually like movies. It's like my favorite movies, or the ones that I can watch repeatedly more than once, are the ones that every time I watch it, there's still a little bit of mystery, right? Like I haven't quite figured out what the filmmakers were doing and why I love it. So that's what I love in this game, is there are little things, even though it's pretty simple and it's a puzzle game, so I mean the very nature of beating it is figuring it out. There are things in it that are still a mystery to me. Like every time I go to a next level, I'm thinking about why the ring changes colors. I'm thinking about, there's so much about it that remains mysterious, yet I am able to like cling on by my fingertips and figure out the puzzles. For instance, and we should get into the fact that I was able to play an early version, not the completed version, that you would let me play for playtesting, which is the first time I've ever done, which is a really fun experience. So I'm wondering, like, actually this is kind of random, but I have that still on my computer as like a little program that I could play, so I could compare it to the new one and the old one. But so let's talk about playtesting. Why did you ask me to playtest the game?
Well, I was asking everybody that I was in touch with at the time. I basically wanted, like, I don't know, like you were talking to me back then as I was coding the game, so I thought you might have been interested to playtest it. But yeah, I wanted like very different people to playtest the game. I wanted, like, I just wanted playtesters. It's very important for a game design. Like I make my game and then I can play it. But when I'm playing it, I already have like this bias from the designer. Like I made this puzzle, I know the solution. I'm not gonna think of anything else other than what I thought of. And it's very, very important, at my opinion, for like mainly puzzle. I wouldn't say like just puzzle. I'd say like everything about game design. It's very important for you to have other people play it, because they will think of things that you would never have thought on your own. And it's just important. I wanted playtesters. I really wanted.
Is it important, or even suggested, maybe it's the opposite of important, to have a non-gamer playtest your game?
Well, it depends a lot on the games that you're trying to make. But yeah, usually, like most games, I would say today, they want non-gamers to be able to play it. Like it's kind of like this know your audience type of thing. Most games today, like AAA games, they want to include everyone. There's a lot of this push towards family, you can see, because they know that from a hardcore gamer perspective, like there's only so many hardcore gamers in the world. And even if your game is like really, really good and all quote unquote hardcore gamers buy it, you could sell it to so much more people. So they do take into account the way that non-gamers play your game. So yeah, it's mostly like a thing that studios with a lot of money do. But yeah, I personally, I can't do that.
Well, how many people play tested to Shed New Light?
Well, good question. There was you. There were like two or three, four, 5 or 4 people, I think.
Were they all
I
gamers?
remember. Yes, they were all gamers.
Were any of them developers?
No, nobody was a developer.
Really? Okay. Have you ever had a developer or a person who knows about coding playtest one of your games?
I don't think so. Oh, yes, I had. Someone that was a developer did playtest Charge Kid a long time ago.
How different is the feedback from a developer versus a regular gamer? And maybe since you've only done one, maybe it's not what you want from your playtesters to be fellow developers? Tell me about that.
Surprisingly, their feedback is not that different. I think what's really important is that you have to understand your audience. Like, for example, Charge Kid in particular, it was a very niche game. So I knew that a lot of people, like random people that don't like this kind of game, they wouldn't like the game. So if they just said like, I don't like the game, it's too hard, or it's too precise, or the puzzles are too hard, I would say, kind of like to think to myself, yeah, that's the point. I could like cave in, make the puzzles easier, make the challenges easier. But if I did that, at least like in my opinion, like I would kind of be making Charge Kid a very different thing that it turned out to be in the end. Right. And I wasn't actually like, I think I talked about it in the interview about it, but Charge Kid was very personal. I wasn't making to sell in the first place. I ended up selling it because it turned out to be good and everybody was telling us to sell it. So it's not like I was ignoring the feedback, because most people said that the game was good actually, but everyone agreed that the game was hard. But everyone also understood that the point of the game was to be hard. So like, for example, there was this part in the game, this point in the development of the game in which the background would mesh a lot with the foreground, and people get confused. They would like, oh, I thought I could jump onto this thing, but this thing is just background. And does that make the game difficult? Yes, it does. Is it my point to make the game difficult by confusing the players? No. I want them to look at the screen, know exactly what they have to do, and go like, oh my God, how do I do this? I don't know. And kind of go like, and then they start messing around and then they figure out and brainstorm, like mind blown moment.
Right. So I think Charge Kid is not a game that I would ever give to a non-gamer. However, yes. Right. However, To Shed New Light is very much a game that I think a non-gamer would enjoy. You know?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Because it's really just about, I mean, there's an element of trial and error, but it's also just maybe
it's kind of chill.
Yeah, it's chill, but it's also like puzzles by their very nature basically dare the person looking at them to solve them. It's like, what? You can't figure it out? Just try to figure me out. You know you can. You know what I mean? So I think it has much broader appeal. I'm curious, dude. I'm curious about the music. Where did you get the music for To Shed New Light?
Well, there are a couple of different sites with free assets, Creative Commons. Most of the times, it's important for you to have the license. And right. I was browsing the internet a lot, and I found this one guy in particular that he had a lot of free stuff, and all of them were good, at least in my opinion. And I just took his stuff, kind of. It was all Creative Commons, so like, yeah, it's fine. And I credited him, even though I didn't need to.
Did you tell him?
No, I didn't. I just put his name there in the game.
You should tell him.
Creative Commons.
He might be a gamer.
Yeah, that's true. I should have told him. Maybe like as now that you asked me, I told like almost every other game that I made and that I used other people's stuff. I told them, but I forgot to tell this guy.
I'm sure he would love it.
I should have told him.
Yeah. Well, I think the music is really, really good, especially like how it changes. Like at one point it ends and then more music starts. Is that at a point in the levels or what? How does the music change? Does it change dynamically?
It changes with the levels, yeah.
Okay.
I had to like decide which levels go with each music.
Got it.
And yeah, most people really like the music. We got second place in the whole game jam for the music category.
Wow, that's awesome. Take me back to, so you and I play tested the game, I believe, 2 or 3 days before you had to have it completed, right?
Yes.
So this is something I've never actually talked about on this podcast. As you mentioned, the game was part of a game jam, correct? And there was just the month of October, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you had to have it done by what, midnight on October 31st?
Yes, midnight at their time. I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's in the United States because it was close to my time. I think it was like 1 hour earlier. Maybe it was your time, actually. I'm not sure.
It probably was East Coast USA. But anyway, and this is not your first game jam, so tell me about what's the emotional state, how are you feeling in the final 3 days when you're crunching, talking to play testers, when you're like, because I want to hear your answer, and then I want to give you a follow-up, an observation, because I played the earlier version and then I played the completed version. So tell me how those, like the last 3 days, how does that feel as the developer?
Well, before I sent you this build, the game was kind of ready. Like I could have sent it as that game for the game jam, and I was like, yeah, I could send this version, but I had luck. I had the luxury to ask my friends for a playtest. So I thought to myself, yeah, I don't need to crunch, but if I crunch, yeah, that's a very thing between creative people. I think like today we have this vision that crunch is a lot like these big companies take advantage of developers and all, but I don't think this is a problem that kind of started as more like capitalism. It's not. I think it's just something that every creative has, and eventually the big companies found a way to exploit that for their advantage. So yeah, I didn't need to crunch. I didn't need to go like deep, but I felt like I can make this game so much better. Like I was going to upload it, and then I thought, like, imagine yourself, put yourself like you make podcasts. You would probably think the same thing. Like you would upload your podcasts, and if you had like more time, you would be thinking stuff like, I could have made it so much better. I already know how I could have made. I already know what I could have improved, but I didn't improve. I choose not to. That's the thing. I choose not to, and I just couldn't do that choice, like not consciously. So yeah, those last 3 days, I wouldn't say I like overly pushed myself. I didn't actually like really like. I don't think I did something like very unhealthy for me, but yeah, that's what was going through my mind. I was like, yeah, I had the luxury to have playtesters. I know where to improve. I know how to improve, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And at least like, I think when I uploaded the final build, and I told myself that's the final build. I'm not gonna change it anymore. I had like 8 hours, 6 hours, 7. I don't remember how many hours I had. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to sleep and that's it.
Yeah. So the reason I mention it is because the original build that I played, I believe it was the 28th of October, was good. It was a good game. I enjoyed it. But then now, today, for the first time today, I played through the entire thing, like since it's been completed for the Game Jam. And dude, it's like significantly better. Like I think whatever you did in those last 3 days, and even little things, like I noticed toward the end, there's like an effect with the background, like the stars kind of like change color, do like a whirlwind thing. And I think you and I talked about how I think the puzzles, or like the order of the puzzles, the pacing of how difficult they get, I think is improved. So I'm just I guess I'm really impressed with the amount of work that you put in those last few days. And I'm curious, are you a perfectionist?
Oof. I would say yes, I am.
Okay. Do you think a person maybe who wasn't a perfectionist would have let those 3 days pass without doing any significant improvements?
Probably. I don't know, like to each his own. Like I can't speak for everyone. Maybe even a perfectionist would have like done something much more harmful for themselves than what I did. As I said, I don't think I did anything harmful to myself. Like, did I worked a lot? I did, but I don't think I like really overworked. I didn't overwork myself to the point of burnout.
Okay.
Like as of right now, I feel ready to make more games.
Very nice. So tell me about, just generally, give me like a rundown of like, this is a game jam, correct? How did you find out about it? Tell me about that, like the fact that this was a game jam.
Well, there's this site called HIO. I think you know it.
Yes.
Yeah, not many people know it. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can go check it out. It's called itch.io. It's basically indie games haven. Like you can upload your games there, and they let you choose how much you want to give them. Like, you know, when you're trying to sell on Steam will always take 30% of all your money. Then what's left of it, you'll still have to pay taxes. And on itch.io, that's not the case. They let you choose how much you want to give to them. If you don't want to give anything to them, if you want 100% of all the money, you have it. You still have to pay taxes, of course.
Wait, hold on.
But
so wait, you can buy games on itch.io?
Yes, you can. They sell games.
I thought it was all free games but I've only been to the site like twice.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like most people, they upload very early builds and prototypes. Most game jams happen in itch.io actually.
Okay.
And that's pretty much how I found it. Like you have this tab called game jams. I think like the site is mostly used by game developers, not really by gamers.
Right.
Like it's not known to like be a good place to sell your game. If you upload your game there, will you sell it? Maybe yes, but you will sell much more on Steam.
I would say as a non-game developer, the itch.io site, the UI is not particularly friendly to like a consumer, I guess.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that as well. But that's the thing. I don't think that they are really like banking on their audience being gamers. Actually, like they are gamers, but most importantly, they are game developers. Like I think like most, like 99.99999% of all game developers are gamers, of course.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like they're targeting gamers. They're targeting game developers. And yeah, I would say that itch.io is this platform for game developers to share their games with other game developers mostly. But you don't need to be a game developer in order to go there and play some games. So yeah, like this game jam in particular, I found it on Twitter actually, I think, because I follow a lot of the people from the development of the Godot engine. I think I mentioned the Godot engine on the ChargeKit interview. Godot engine is a open source engine, and you know I really like open source. I think I said it before, but to me, one of the most important things that, I don't know, I really believe in is in sharing knowledge. You do too. It's on your podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the Godot engine, it's open source. Like if you don't know anything about game engines and you're a programmer, you can just open up the source code. You can go there and check it out yourself. You can even contribute to it. And it's really good, I think. It's really good. It's also like a really good engine. Like most people that have heard about it but haven't tried it think it's like underpowered, at least like compared to Unity. Like Unity is the top dog at the market right now. And then there's Unreal Engine 4, which is also really, really good and used. And in third place, I think Godot is like right now, I think they're at the third place of most used engines. I think. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But yeah, most people that don't use it think it's underpowered. It's not really that bad. In my opinion, at least, it's the best engine for 2D games. It's better than Unreal and better than Unity for 2D games. I really do think that.
Why do you think
that?
They do
lack on the... Why? Well, it's like when you're making a game. For example, I've been studying Unity these past days. And the way they at least like the way Unity does 2D is basically they don't. It's all 3D actually. They just like they put your camera on perspective, not perspective, orthogonal mode, orthogonal projection, and everything will look 2D. They have like some tools for 2D, for making 2D physics, for making 2D movement, and that's it. as far as I know, Unreal have like none of that. If you want to make a 2D game on Unreal, you have to do all of these things that Unity does, and you have to like kind of code your own 2D stuff in it. And Godot is like much more. They kind of separate their engines. They have two separate engines, one for 2D and one for 3D, all in the same engine. Like they're really good at doing 2D. One of the things, in my opinion, my experience, one of the things that makes the most difference is the fact that when you're making a game in Unity, the unit for distance, like you wanna measure, like, oh, this character, this sprite on the screen is on this position, and this other one is on this position. The points, the unit that you use to measure distance is the same one that we use for 3D environments. And it's kind of weird to tell when you're in 2D. Like, sometimes you just want something to go like 1 or 2 pixels to the left or to the right or whatever direction it is that you want. And it's very hard to do that. It's not trivial, let's say. I mean, it kind of is if you just have to do a little math. It's not that difficult. But in Godot, the distance is pixels. Like, everything just makes sense. It's much more intuitive in there. Plus, there's also their own, like, not going to say pipeline, maybe their workflow. Yes, the workflow of Godot engine, in my opinion, is the best one between those 3 engines. Like, I can't say much about Unreal. I never used it. I have it downloaded on my computer. I know, like, a little bit of how it works. I have seen a lot of tutorials about it. I have kind of studied, but I haven't, like, actually made a game in it. So I can't actually tell a lot about it. But when compared to Unity, like, Unity works in a very specific way. Godot works in a not so similar way, but it gives you much more freedom. I think, in my opinion, like, in my honest opinion, the workflow is what really makes Godot good, in my honest opinion. But yeah, I have to agree that if you're trying to make a 3D game, especially the shaders, like the VFX, optimization stuff, Unity just beats Godot on that. There's no contest.
Okay, if I were just a person that you didn't know was a video game podcast interviewer, and I said, is To Shed New Light 2D or 3D, what would you say?
It's 3D.
It's 3D?
Yes.
Okay.
I just said not to make 3D games on Godot, but I made it.
Okay, so
a lot of people did that too.
So the actual lines are a 3-dimensional thing, correct?
Yes.
So but the circle, the ring that you move around, that's always facing the camera. Is the ring 2D or 3D?
The ring is actually a sphere. I just do some math that I make the center of the sphere. By center, I mean, it looks at the camera. It goes like, oh, where the camera is there. Oh, it's over there. So I know where you're looking the sphere from. And I go like, yeah, from your perspective, the center of the sphere will be dark and its borders will be lit up.
Correct.
The black hole is the same thing. It's a sphere. I just like do some math in order to figure out where you're looking from. And then I light up its borders. It's a lot of math. I'm a math guy.
It's very interesting. Is there a way to do what you just described without math if you're not a math guy?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I have seen like a lot of talks by people that do 3D art, VFX, and shaders overall. There's this thing that we call visual shaders. A lot of people talk about visual shaders and visual coding overall in Unreal Engine because I think their visual language is the best right now. And yeah, most people that do these VFX, they're a little bit art inclined. I don't know actually. Now I'm talking out of my ass probably. I say that the majority of them are, but I'm not sure because okay. I'm not really that much art inclined.
Okay.
I'm a kind of a bit of a coder myself. So yeah, I went into this part from the coder side. So yeah, most of the times when I see these talks, they use this visual language. And what a visual language is like a way to code that isn't coding actually. Like you make those nodes. You know this meme of the that guy that he's like a cop and has this very crazy diagram of a lot of post-its linking to another, and he's looking at the camera. Yes. Yeah, in my opinion, like every time I see any visual code, that's how it looks like. It looks like this this board that he's looking at, because that's how it is. Each post-it is a node, is what they call a node, and each node they links to another node, and they communicate with each other, and they do stuff. So most people that I've seen doing talks about shaders and doing this stuff, they say that they don't like math. They say that they don't understand coding, but they can understand the visual shaders, the visual coding. And like in my opinion, they say that they don't know coding. They say that they don't know math, but they're doing math. They're coding with this thing. It's the same thing. It's like almost the same thing. It's just presented in a different way. Like I think people have an irrational fear of math. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But for example, just when you see like math, just by seeing like an integral, a derivative, a limit symbol on the board, people just panic instantly. They get, oh no, I can't do. Oh, they kind of panic. But like if they would like kind of see math as a skill that it is, like it's a skill and it can be learned, it can be applied. It's a skill. It's like, I don't know, art. It's like anything else. And like I think that people panic a little bit too much. For example, when you see that meme that I said, like all the nodes, they kind of do this spaghetti of lines going everywhere, and you can't see any. At least I have much more difficulty understanding visual coding than to understand actual, like not actual, like normal traditional code. Let's say traditional, because a traditional code, it's just a text, and like it starts at the top. You just read like left to right each line. It's just a normal text. Now visual coding, where do I start? It's a board. It's two-dimensional. It's much harder, at least in my opinion. Like, of course, you can understand it. You just have to like think in a different way. But I think that just by looking at code, people, they instantly have this gut reaction to say, I can't understand it. It's not for me. I will never be able to do that. And then they look at the visual stuff. They go like, oh, I can understand that. And what they are doing is essentially the same thing, like the mental capacity that it takes, the quote-unquote intelligence, the quote-unquote, I don't know, intellectual work. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They say that they don't know math. They are doing math.
Okay.
It's weird.
Well, yeah, when I see someone coding and I look at what they're typing, I have no idea at all what I'm looking at. And like for the first time in my life, after talking to all these video game developers, I'm kind of thinking like, you know, some of these people came from film. There used to be filmmakers, right? Yes. And then all of a sudden they're like in their 30s learning how to code, and they make a game by themselves and they release it in like 2 years. And I'm just like, maybe I could learn how to do that. But I have no intention of doing that right now. But it really is amazing. Like, so in your opinion, I find as a total layperson, right, I find that every single game, I feel, every single indie game is made with Unity, right? Like,
yes, the vast majority of them.
Why? Is it just because it's easiest, cheapest, most user-friendly?
Well, in my opinion, that's a really good question I had there, because I have my bias toward Godot. I really like it. It, like, sometimes I talk like it's the best engine ever. It's not, okay? It's not. I have to be honest. But yeah, but in order to answer this question of yours, I really believe what I'm going to say now. Like, even with my own biases, I really believe what I'm about to say. But I think that the reason why people keep using Unity is because it's just the biggest one. Like, if you Google anything, how do I start game development? The vast majority of people will tell you download Unity and start with Unity. And if you ask why, like, you might start a flame war, because there will be people defending Unity, there will be people defending Unreal, there will be a few people defending Godot as well. So, like, why? Why? Like, in my opinion, it's just because they cemented themselves as the best. And when you cement yourself as the best, you get more people. And as you get more people, like, you just grow. It's much more easier. Like, we have this horde mentality to go towards what's the biggest right now. And when it comes to Unity, I really don't like completely agree with like, should I really, if I was like telling someone new, would I tell them to go to Unity? It depends a lot on what they're trying to do. It depends a lot on their past experiences. But overall, I would say that no, like the reason why Unity is so big right now is because it's already big. There's this Windows. It's like using Windows, in my opinion, as well. Like Windows is also the most used OS. Some people don't know that Linux exists. Linux is a thing. Some people don't even know that Mac is a thing. Would you even believe it?
I mean, I've heard the term Linux, and I still have no idea what that means or what it is. But I've heard the term. Okay. What computers use it? Any of them? Like what? Do you know?
Well, I use Linux.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's just an OS, and it's open source.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I like it is because it's open source. I try to use everything open source. So like I said it's comparing Unity to Windows because the reason why people use Windows is because everybody already knows Windows and they're not willing to learn something else. Like there is no reason. Like Windows does everything I need to do. So why am I going to use something else? Why fix what's not broken? And Unity kind of has that thing too. Unity does everything that you need to do. Like a lot of people that like they defend Unreal Engine. They say that Unreal is the most powerful of all the free engines right now. Like it's more powerful in 3D than Unity, etc., blah, 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 blah. It has more tools. It's the most advanced of the engines right now. However, like I really doubt that if you're using Unity, you're going to reach a point in which you will feel like, damn, I need more power. I wish I made this game in Unreal. I really doubt that's not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen. And if that's not going to happen, then you'll never feel the need to switch from Unity to anything else. Me, myself, why was I even like learning Unity in the first place? Because I believe that being stuck with a very specific tool is bad. I don't like to depend on tools. I like to know every tool. I downloaded all of these engines in my computer because I intend to learn them, and then I can compare them. I'm like this guy that likes to hate on everything a little bit. Like if people come to me saying, Unity is good, I'll say, nah, Unity is bad because I'll say why I think it's bad. And if people say, Godot is bad because I'll say, you're right, Godot's bad.
Wait,
so that's the thing.
I know you said you haven't dabbled with Unreal too much, but as a developer, is it possible for you to look at an indie game and give an educated guess as to what engine it was made in?
Yes, first of all, Unity, every time you load up a free game, mostly a free game on Unity, the first thing that we show, it's the Unity logo.
Yeah.
Instantly.
But if you were looking at gameplay.
Well, that's much more difficult to tell.
Okay.
That's very difficult. That's because I would say that all of these engines, they can do the same things, like graphically and gameplay-wise. It's like, I don't know, maybe I would say that like if you're really into VFX like I am, you could notice some things that are much harder to achieve in Godot. So if you like notice these kinds of things, you will think, that was probably not made in Godot because it has these specific things. Does that mean that Godot can't make those things? No. First of all, Godot is open source. You can literally go there and edit yourself. But it would require like some heavy knowledge, of course. But just as I'm saying, like, can you do like everything that Unity does with Godot? Yes, you can. You would probably like either need to modify the engine yourself, or you have to make some very, I don't know, non-optimal ways to do that. But you can. So yeah, like I can't say with like 100% certainty which engine the game was made, but I can make an educated guess, as you said.
Okay. So tell me about the game jam itself. Where did your game place? And maybe tell us what was your favorite game that was in this game jam besides your own?
Well, there were 27 games in total. I remember like more than 200 people signed up, but only 27 games made it to the final to the last day. And of these 27 games, there were like 2 or 3 unfinished games. Actually, people just uploaded their unfinished games. Some people said that we tried to make this game, but it wasn't finished. We didn't upload it. So maybe some of these people could have uploaded their own games as well. So there were 27 games, and we placed 7th in the overall category.
Nice.
But as I said previously, we placed 2nd in music. I think we placed like I don't remember 6th. I think we got 6th on theme, which was the most important category. We placed very high on graphics too. I don't remember exactly where. Maybe 5th, 6th, 7th. I don't remember. I think the category that we got the fewest points was controls or maybe accessibility.
Okay.
Actually, I think we got high in accessibility as well. Like we couldn't have gotten anything very low on anything because we got 7th overall. So the mean, the average was 7.
Yeah. Very cool. Congratulations. What was there one game in the jam that stuck out to you that you played that you thought was awesome, worth mentioning?
Well, there was 2 games. I even made a post because on each game jam there's this community tab. It's basically forums, and I remember I played every single game in there. I played all the other people's games. So as I said, 27 games, and one of these games were mine, so I had to play 26 games.
Right.
So when I played them all, I just posted. I said, I played every game. Good job, everyone. And I shouted out 2 other games. They were called One Simple Observation by I don't know their real name, their nickname, their username on itch.io is That's Mike.
Okay.
And there was this other game called Lost in Parallels. Lost in Parallels won the whole thing. They got 1st place. And I think the other one got 2nd or 3rd. I'm not sure now.
Okay.
But like this one called One Simple Observation. It has this like story. Like you start as a not really a little baby. You start as an unborn baby, and the first thing you do is you birth. You I don't know how do I say that in English?
You're born.
Yeah, you're born. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no verb to say it. I don't know.
Birth.
So you're
maybe?
born.
I don't know. I know as much as you do. Continue.
So you are born, and then you're a little baby, and as you keep playing, you keep getting older and older and older, and the game has these visuals. It's like a little bit of mystic, quote unquote. I don't know. It's a lot blue. It has a lot of smoke. It has a lot of mist. It has a lot of clouds everywhere. And it's pixel art. It's very beautiful pixel art. It's a platforming overall. But the thing is, as you keep playing, you keep getting older and the controls change. You can jump higher. You become heavier, etc., etc. That's how they use the mechanic. The thing, I would say, everything changes. And like what I really liked about this game is just the story, I would say, because it's all about growing up and realizing how to, in life, everything changes. I really like the theme.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Everything changes. Was that a theme for the entire game jam?
Yes, that's the theme. Everything changes. That's the theme.
Wow. Okay.
You have to make a game with that theme.
Okay, I did not realize that. Okay, that's totally my fault. I thought that was what you chose to be the theme for your game. So the whole theme, you guys had basically boundaries, a theme. Everything changes. Okay, so I get it now. I'm such a dummy. Okay, it makes perfect sense. And now that you say that was a theme and that's what this person decided to do with it, was to basically simulate a life?
Kind of, yes.
That is amazing. Like, that is such a cool way to apply the theme to a game. Because I feel like, dude, that's what you learn as you get older, that everything's always changing. Like, your perspective's always changing. That's really fascinating.
Exactly.
I would love to play that game.
This is one of the reasons that I really like playing game jam games. Like, a lot of the time, you'll have a lot of jank. Like, you will... some of these games are made like in 1 month. Like this game jam in particular, we had 1 month, but the vast majority of game jams, you have much less time than that. I have participated in game jams in which I had only 2 days. Okay. Others I had like 3 days.
Right.
So the vast majority of game jams that I have seen that I have participated, I had like 2 or 3 days to make it. So of course there will be a lot of jank. And yeah, even though there are some jank, you will always find like some very, very creative games. This one in particular stood out to me. So it kind of had these life lessons things. And the other game, the Lost in Parallels game, I really like it because it was much more about gameplay focused. Like you had this platforming level as well, but it was kind of layered on top of the next level. And you revealed the next level with your mouse. Like the mouse had like a little circle that you moved around, and inside the circle there was the next level. So you kind of had to mix, like sometimes in order to, like, for example, there's a wall in front of the objective, the place you need to reach to end the level. There is a wall, but just on the level you are currently, but on the next level, there is no wall. So if you put the mouse on the wall, it will become the next level and you can just pass through it. It's amazing. It was like, from a game purpose, I'm really like a gameplay guy, you know. Most of the way that I really think much more in game mechanics and game design and levels than anything else. I'm not really that big into like, I wouldn't say I am good at writing. I'm not good at making like art. I'm not that good at all of these things. But I think, at least like in my mind, my mind goes like, I don't know, turbo mode when I'm thinking mechanics and levels. And seeing this guy that I'm not gonna say that he's the same thing about me, but his game was also like heavily into the mechanical side of it. And yeah, his idea to kind of like layer each level on top of each other and using the mouse to reveal each one and use it as a puzzle mechanic was, to me, it was brilliant. I have never seen a game like that. I really liked his game. It was also incredibly polished because, like, as a game developer, I know like how he could have made some of these things. And like one of the things that really makes game jams like difficult is because you have the ideas and you have to code them. Sometimes, especially if you're a guy like me that has these crazy gameplay ideas, you don't know how to code your particular idea. And what can happen is that as you're coding it, it's like way too janky, it's way too buggy. Like you have to be really good at coding in order to make your ideas come to life. And in my vision, this is the kind of idea that if I was making it, it would go down really fast. It would start like to pile up bugs on top of bugs. So the guy that made it, he's probably very comfortable with coding, I think. I haven't asked him, but yeah, I appraise him. He's really good at that. And it played really well. It was incredibly well polished for a game jam game, in my opinion. And yeah, I think like he has something great. He can like make more levels. He can make a really good game out of it if he wants to.
When you say it was really well polished, do you mean like just no bugs?
Yeah, kind of. No bugs. No, I mean, polish is on every aspect of the game. For example, music. The way he made his game in particular, he had like one track, but he had many different instruments. I'm saying he, but he didn't make the game alone, if I recall it correctly.
Okay.
So I don't know if he was the one that made the music, but right. Yeah, there were like many different layers of the music. Like you were on this level, and there were like these specific instruments playing the music. And when you advance to the next level, you would get more instruments playing on top of the previous ones. Sometimes others would like leave the song and make way for other instruments that were probably playing in a different tempo. I'm not entirely sure because the way the game started, the music sounded like something, and by the end of it, it sounded a little bit different.
Okay.
So it's like the music morphed into something else. It was amazing. I really liked it. I was like, yeah, this is polish. This is polish. He could just put a song playing, but he didn't.
So if you graded the polish of that game from 1 to 10, what would it be?
10, 100%. It was very polished. He probably like worked very tirelessly during all of these 30 days that he had to make his game.
Okay, so if that game's a 10, in your opinion, what level of polish is to shed new light, 1 to 10?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I as I said, I used all of these last 3 to 4 days, I don't remember, as you said, to basically polish the game. I was making new levels to smooth out the difficulty curve. I even chose more music. I was actually as well making like some graphical tweaks. I was optimizing some stuff. So yeah, I'm not gonna say that my game is unpolished. It has very few bugs. I don't remember anyone finding any bug during the game jam, but I know that my game has bugs. I know where they are. Maybe this guy also knows that his game has bugs. He knows where they are, but I didn't find them.
Okay.
So yeah, like from the perspective of a developer, I would say like from the perspective of not just a developer, maybe from the perspective of the developer that made this game, I would give my game like a 7 or an 8. But from someone that is just playing it, he might not find any problems at all. Maybe they might give me a 9 or a 10. I don't know.
I found it, especially since I played an earlier version, I found the newer version, the completed version, to be very polished. I wasn't trying to knock you at all. I thought it'd be funny to hear what you had to say about your own game. So one thing I do want to touch on real quick is you and I are big fans of puzzle games, especially puzzle games that don't rely on written word to explain the mechanics.
Yes.
So I found myself in your game I think there's one aspect of your game that did that really well. So there's one mechanic in it that is never explained with words on the screen. So it would be near impossible for me to even explain it to you, which is what is so cool, that I figured it out. I can apply what I figured out to the game while I'm playing it, but then when it comes to expressing what it is or how it works, it's like almost impossible. So, but I'll try. So basically, when the ring, like if you put the ring, like if there's two parallel or perpendicular lines, right?
Yes.
And you put the ring, if you line it up with the line that it is not on, okay, this is probably hard to explain, to understand audibly. If you line it up so that the ring is lined up with the line that the ring is not touching, and then you change the perspective and then you change it back, the ring will be on the other line.
Yes.
As long as you line it up properly. So I found myself later on in the game realizing, okay, like this is a tool that I can utilize. Like it's part of my arsenal in figuring out the game. But trying to explain it just now, it's like nearly impossible. But I found myself within the game, especially in the later levels, leaning on that and realizing that would work every time. So I just want to say, I think from my perspective, that is a major success in creating the game, I guess is what I'm getting at. So, and it sounds like you knew exactly what I was talking about, correct?
I knew it, yes, of course.
Okay, so that was intentional the whole game?
100%, yes.
Okay, and did you realize while implementing it that you never told the player outright that this is a thing that you should be able to know how to do?
Yeah, as you said, I really like, I'm really a fan of these games that don't use language, don't use written words. Like they use language, it's just a very non-traditional language, kind of.
Right.
Which is gameplay, in my opinion. And yeah, I tried my best to introduce mechanics without words. I always try to do that with my games. Every game that, if you see my game my name on the credits, if I had like some power, some level on the decision-making, guys, the game will probably have as few words to explain itself as possible.
Yes.
So yes, this was 100% intentional. Not only that, but a lot of pretty much every mechanic. I think the place where I used like language was like the first level to just say click and drag,
right,
and an arrow, and then there was this other level that you get the mechanic to change the camera for the first time. These are pretty much the only places. There is another level that I figured some people would have difficulty understanding it, and I programmed it to be like if you spend 1 minute and you don't solve the level, I'm gonna give you a hint. There's one level that has it.
Okay, really? I never saw that.
Yeah, because probably you figured it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. So,
but yeah,
yes,
this level in particular that you said, the lining up lines that are perpendicular, I knew these levels would be kind of like problematic for a lot of people because as you said, I don't explain it. So they don't know about it.
Right.
And I had to make a lot of levels with this mechanic, and they had to be like very easy at the beginning. I had to make things very like simple. I tried to make things simple. And like, I think at the end of the game, I'm using this mechanic a lot. But yeah, this is kind of like a hidden aspect. I kind of discovered, I stumbled upon this thing as I was like making the levels. I would realize that each time if I was looking at the level from a perspective and some lines were perpendicular to your own view, they would like be parallel to your own view. They would kind of like disappear. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, since I coded the game, I knew that even though they kind of disappeared, they're like in front of another line that isn't perpendicular, that isn't parallel to your point of view. I knew that if I lined it up, the little ring, it would go to that level. So I was like, yeah, I can use that.
Very cool. Well, it's one of the most interesting parts of the game, I think, because it's a true aha moment, you know, where you go, oh, yes, I can use this to my advantage, and it works every time. So I guess for the what time we have left, I just want to ask a couple questions that I ask everyone that I have on my show.
Okay.
But for you, I might alter them a little bit because this time we're talking about a game jam. So one thing I ask is, what is release day like for an indie video game developer? But to you, I will ask, what is completion day like for an indie developer working in a game jam? How does it feel when you've turned it in and there's nothing else you can do but wait? What's that like?
To me, at least like so far, all the time it has been the same thing. I am very tired. I want to go to bed. That's what happens. And at the same time, I'm a little bit nervous actually, because like most game jams that I made, like I kind of know, like I think every developer knows how good their game is. So in this particular game, I was very confident that the game was going to be well received. It was well, like, I'm not trying to like be this guy, oh, look, he's arrogant, but like, yeah, you have to like at least know like how these things work when you work a lot on them. And I wasn't sure like I was going to win, of course, but I knew at least I was going to do good. And that makes me nervous, because if I don't, I would feel like really bad, like, oh, damn, I really believe this game, damn, I'm sad. But yeah, that didn't happen. So yeah, at least for this particular time and almost every other game jam that I really believed I was going to do good. Like, I went to bed, but I had this feeling in my head, like I was nervous, because I know that by the time I wake up, I will look at my cell phone and there will be like a lot of notifications, like someone played your game, someone left a comment. And I'm a little bit like always like nervous if they don't really like, oh my God, this game is good. Like, yeah, your game has a bug there. If the game has a bug and I haven't caught it, I feel really bad, you know?
Right. What was
yeah, it's a mixture between those two things. I'm really tired and I'm really nervous.
What was the response from players, not from judges, but from just players? What has the response been?
Well, most people liked it. They really said, because, well, for my previous games, I usually make some. I like difficult games as well.
Right.
So this was the first game that I made that wasn't like difficult at all. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's not like, I don't know, compared to Charge Kid.
Yeah. Well.
So yeah, most people said good things about it. They were like, yeah, you should. The thing that I heard the most was like, you should make a mobile version. This game is perfect for mobile.
I agree.
This is one of the things that I heard the most.
Okay, so I found Charge Kid because it was on Nintendo Switch, and I bought it. And you had mentioned that you made Charge Kid in a game jam. Everyone told you it was good enough to sell, so you decided to sell it. What are your plans for To Shed New Light? Anything additionally, or do you want to sell it? Do you want to put it on port it to mobile? Any plans?
I rarely make any plans, to be honest. I'm a very in the moment guy. Maybe I should change that.
Okay.
But yeah, now that you say it, I kind of feel like trying to port it, but at the same time, I really want to keep studying Unity. So okay. I'd be probably like, I don't know, I'll be dividing myself on that. But yeah, don't expect like a new To Shed New Light version so soon. Okay. what I really like probably will do it is just like make all of these games that I keep on making on game jams, because they could go on my portfolio. Like I did well with this game. I really did. I think it was like my best game jam game so far. I think.
You should.
No, maybe there was one game that did really, really well. I didn't do it alone. Like it was 7 people. I don't remember. It was a lot of people working on it. I was just a little part of the game, so I'm not gonna call it mine.
You should make like the Rafael Bordoni game jam game pack, where it's like you could sell it like one price and you get all the games. That would be really cool. So give us one piece of advice, one essential piece of advice for game developers participating in a game jam.
Oh, in a game jam. Well, the first thing I would tell them is to, well, in my opinion, like this is something that's going to sound, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, I don't think pretentious is the word, but I would say like when you're having the idea, this is the way I operate, I think, and this is the way I think that other people usually think when they are judging a game jam game. Like, it's very easy for you as a game developer to have like, to think of your game as a game from this very specific genre. For example, oh, it's an RPG. Oh, it's a platformer. Oh, it's an FPS. Like, yeah, sure. You can think of, oh, I'm going to make an FPS. And how's the theme going to go? The theme is going to be, I don't know, let's say the theme is walls. I'm looking at the walls, so I think, yeah, the theme is walls. And yeah, I'm going to make this FPS and it will have walls, I guess. Like, no. This is, in my opinion, the biggest mistake that a lot of game jammers do is that they don't include the mechanics, or they don't include the theme on the mechanics. You shouldn't think of your game as like its genre. Like, no, your game is not a platformer. Your game is not an FPS. Your game has to have, like, it's different. Your game is different. Your game is, think of the mechanic. Think of the mechanics. Maybe that's what I'm actually trying to say is like, think of the mechanics. Don't focus yourself. Don't lock yourself into its genre. Like, genres are cool. They help us like kind of figure out what we're trying to make. But above all else, I think like as a game developer, you have to realize that you're a game. Like, games are much more than their own genres. So lean more onto that. Like, most games that I see that do really well on game jams, they are very innovative to some way or another. Like, they play differently. They use their mechanics. They use the theme of the mechanic. And if you don't use your theme of the mechanic, that doesn't mean you can't win. But I would say, like, overall, just think of the mechanics. Think of the game design more than the story or the characters or the graphics itself. I think people give way too little weight to mechanics.
Well, I would say the fact that, based on my knowledge of the theme that To Shed New Light was created in that game jam, with that theme, knowing what that theme is, right? And even though I've never played the game that you mentioned came in first, thinking about the theme and then thinking of how you describe that game, even though I haven't played it, it already sounds like really good and really perfect for the theme, I guess is what I'm saying. So I think that
exactly.
So I think that it's just such an interesting way to look at that theme. And it's obviously everyone in the world can connect with that theme because we all were babies and we grew up to whatever age we are now. It's extremely relatable. So I think that that's really good advice. Another question that I ask all my guests, but I'll try to adapt it to the fact that you made this game in a game jam, would be, do you have any advice or some kind of message you would give to people who are playing game jam games? Like, knowing that this game was made within 2 or 3 days or maybe a month. Do you have any advice for a gamer who stumbled upon a game jam game?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because I don't know if I have like ever seen someone that just like that goes out of their way to like, I'm gonna play game jam games. Usually when someone's playing a game jam game is because they uploaded their own games, and this is how game jams work. Like, you upload your game and then you play other people's games and you rate them. You leave a message so they know, oh, the guy that made this game in particular, there's a link. There's always a link close to your name with the game that you uploaded. So they're like, yeah, if they rated my game, it only makes sense that I'm gonna rate their own games as well. And this is kind of how it works, at least like for me. And yeah, I've never met anyone that goes out of their way to play game jam games. So if I met anyone like that, what I would tell them is, yeah, like you're gonna see a lot of jank, as I said before, but you will find some very, very new things, like very crazy stuff, very creative stuff that you have like never thought in your life that a game would make. Like as you kind of like said, when you think about the theme and you see my game and you see the games that I mentioned, you can understand how they like use the theme on the mechanics, on the game design, on their levels, and like it all comes together, it all makes sense. But really, like, there's been so many game jams that I've participated, and some of them make really some crazy, innovative stuff that you would like never think of as a video game. I really like it. I really think like playing game jam games is it's a very different experience. It's not always good, as I said. There's a lot of jank. Even the creative games, they are janky by nature because it's a game jam. You can't be really polished on it. My game has some jank in it, I would say, but I think it's worth it overall.
So I just want to say that I think having a theme, right, for the game jams, and I don't think this is a new bit of information or a new insight that I'm about to say. I think this is established, that creativity, I feel, creativity can be so much more innovative and interesting, and can, I guess, spread its wings more when there are boundaries, which sounds counterintuitive, right? You would think if you tell someone you can make whatever you want, right, and you gave them an unlimited budget, they would probably never release anything because there's nothing like containing them, right? So I find that the most interesting thing about these games that you explain, what makes them most creative, in my opinion, is how the creator took the boundaries and created something that's just so interesting, but within those boundaries. Do you get what I'm saying? Am I babbling?
No, I completely understand. I completely agree with it.
It's just so it's so fascinating to see, okay, what did this person's brain do with these limitations? Okay, and then what did this person's brain do with these limitations? They're like so different, but they fit within the limitations. I find it so fascinating and so much more interesting and creative.
Yeah. There's this saying that they say that constraints breed creativity.
Yeah.
And usually when I started learning game development overall, I had to learn art. I'm not going to say that I'm like good at it, but that's the saying that they put the most, especially if you're trying to learn pixel art. They say like, don't just limit yourself on resolution. Don't just try to say like, yeah, each character will be, 16 by 16 pixels. Don't just do that. I think, my opinion, the most important thing is to actually limit the colors. Like pick 8 colors, just those 8 colors, and always just use them. If you want to be radical, pick 4 colors.
Very cool.
And yeah, like creativity, I really think that the saying that you just said is really important. Like it also reminds me of the time when I used to like, I am still part of the extension group for my old university. I still talk to them. I'm not a member of the university anymore, but I still talk to them, and I still like, helps them when some events come. And there was this time where I was a tutor. I would like have new people, have new members. They would come to us and they say, yeah, I want to learn game dev. And everybody else would say, cool, go into our Discord, talk to our tutors, and they're probably gonna like find you a group and help you learn anything. And I was a tutor back then. And the way I used to make it, pretty much the way everybody used to make, they had their own differences. But the way I used to tell them was like, okay, first you got to choose a very simple game, probably a retro game, like, Tron, Tetris, Bomberman. And you're going to clone that game in 1 month. Like with this way, you have a deadline. The deadline is very important, and you have already a plan. You already know what game you're making. Just as you said, if you just give anyone like infinite budget and infinite time and make whatever you want, they'll probably never make anything. But if I tell you, you have 1 month and you have to make this game in particular, just this game, don't go overboard. Don't try to add new things to it. You're probably not gonna be able to even finish this one game. That's what I kind of tell them. And then I start to like teach them the basics of using the software that they choose. Usually we use the Godot engine. It's easy for an university, a public university in particular, to just pick free stuff. We have to be accessible.
Right.
And the Godot is 100% free. Even like everything that you make with it is 100% yours. You don't own them any money at all. Unlike Unity and Unreal.
Right.
So yeah, there's this advantage. So yeah, like sometimes, of course, there are people that in our group in particular that also use Unity. Unity is the most used one. So a lot of people come to us wanting to learn Unity, and we teach them Unity. So yeah, we in particular, like my groups, I made them like choose their game, and I gave them 1 month, and then I taught them Git. Git is probably the most important thing to work in a team, and their engine. Usually, I think all groups that I taught wanted to learn Godot. I never taught a group that wanted to learn Unity for some reason. Maybe because like we are very big on Godot back there, so there's this influence thing. Like they join us and they say like, "Oh, look, everybody's using Godot. Guess I'll use Godot then."
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, that is all very fascinating stuff. So the last question will be, if you could possibly provide for me, call out another developer, someone that you respect and admire, or someone who made an amazing game that you thoroughly enjoy, someone that you think would make a great guest on this show, similarly to how you made a great guest. Call them out. Who would they be? What game did they make?
Oh, the guys that won that game jam, I think. I remember the guy that made one simple observation, that game about getting old, etc., etc.
Right.
I'm like, if I remember correctly, the people that won the game jam, not only they got like some prize in money, I think the guy that won also got featured in their own another sites as well. And yeah, I'm not sure if the guys that got second and third got featured. So yeah, maybe you could feature that guy that got second or third. I don't know. The guy that got second, I think, I'm not sure now. But yeah, this guy that made one simple observation, I think like, I'm pretty sure he didn't win the game jam. So yes, I'm going to call out this guy.
Okay, perfect. So that game is called One Simple Observation?
Yes. Okay,
amazing. I'm glad you called him out, because I would love to play that game, even if you didn't call him out. That sounds like a really interesting game. So, Rafael, I thank you immensely once again for coming on the show and discussing your games. Anytime you make any other game, I would love to have you on the show.
Fine.
I'd
love to be here as well.
Yeah, I consider you a friend, and I thoroughly enjoy everything I've played that you made so far. But how can they either contact you, get in touch with you on social media, and how can they play the game to shed new light?
You just go to itch.io. There's my page on itch.io. It's eldscald.itch.io. Eldscald spells ELDSKALD.
All right.
It's also my Twitter.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. People can find your game. They can find you on Twitter. So does your page on itch.io have your other games? Like, how many games do you have on there? How many games?
How many games do I have? I have both the Charge Kid, the complete version that you can buy on Steam. You can also buy Charge Kid on itch.io.
Right.
And I also have the Game Jam version, the first ever uploaded version, the 1.0.0.
Of Charge Kid?
Yes, you can play. You see that the game is completely different. It played very, very different.
Wow.
It was a different game.
I got to play that.
Yeah, there's the two versions of Charge Kid there. There's also To Shed New Light. There's From the Core. It was a game that I made on another game jam that took 1 month. It was my only one. My first and so far only game that I made completely solo. I had to make everything from scratch, and I said to myself, I'm not gonna take anything, no free assets. no nothing. I had to make everything from scratch. I made music for the first time.
What's it called?
From the core.
From the core?
Yes. I like those crazy names that don't say anything about the game.
Dude, okay, so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to play that game because it sounds amazing. And the fact that you said you made it entirely yourself, I feel like that would breed an excellent interview. So I'm going to be heading over to itch.io. I'm going to look you up, and I'm going to play that game. And I would love to interview you about it. Do you have any interesting stories about it that we could discuss during the interview?
Yes, 100%. It was also the first game jam that I made that was in 1 month. Every other game jam that I participated prior to it, I had like 3 or 2 days to make the games. That was also why I decided to go 100% solo. It was like, I have 1 month, I can make it.
Wow.
And I made it. I was so proud.
That's amazing. I can't wait to play
I also did like kind of well on this game jam as well. There were like 500 games that were submitted.
Wow.
And I got 59th position.
Wow.
58. I don't remember like everything. I did well. I really did well in my opinion.
When was that one?
It was the whole month of November from last year. It was the game jam from GitHub. GitHub has this yearly game jam that they always organize each year. It's always on the month of November. It's the whole month of November. It's going on right now. I'm not 100% sure if I want to participate in it. Mostly because like last year when they announced the theme, I was like, I think I know what I'm going to make it. This year when they announced the theme, I was like, oh, I'm not sure I know what I want to make it.
What's the theme?
Plus, I was like tired from this other game jam I just made.
What's the new theme this year?
Bug. It's just bug.
Bug?
Bug, yes. And they said like something like, you can interpret the theme whatever you want. You can make like intentional bugs on the code. You can make like actual bugs, like say that, like Hollow Knight, I don't know.
Right.
You can like, I don't know, those bugs that, I don't know, spies and cops use like to spy on people.
Yeah. That's cool. Man, that sounds really cool. I've never been someone who pays attention to game jams, but I think I am now. Because, like, dude, you could play so many cool games, and it sounds like for free if you just play game jam games and, like, potentially interact with the people who made them and tell them how cool they are. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that, as I said, like, previously, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I really believe that you can find some crazy, good, beautiful, creative stuff in game jams. I really like them. Yeah. This is why I'm kind of like a game jam rat. I participate on a lot of game jams.
That's so cool.
From the core in particular, it's very janky because it had some problems during coding, but it's overall okay, I would say. Right. But like the theme was Moonshot. And there were some people that came up with such like wild ideas. I was like, how did the people come up with this?
Wow.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I really liked it. It was one of the game jams that I had the most fun making the game in particular. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to get on that. I'm going to play that game. I would love to interview you about that. And I guess that pretty much wraps it up. So Rafael, one more time, thank you so much for being here. I love all the games I've played that you've made so far. And I guess that wraps it up.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Goodbye to everybody. Thank you for listening.
Well, that wraps up today's interview. I am a huge fan of Rafael's games. I am very much looking forward to interviewing him again for his game From the Core. So be sure to keep an eye out for that episode coming as soon as possible. Also, an interview about Rafael's game Charge Kid should be coming soon as well. Make sure to check out Rafael's games on his itch.io page. You can find me on Twitter at IndieGameINTL and on the web at sumadrepodcasts.com. If you want to sponsor this podcast or you have a suggestion for a great guest that should be featured on the show, tweet at me or email me at sumadrepodcasts@gmail.com. Okay, one more massive thank you to Rafael Bordoni. One more huge thank you to you for listening, and I hope that you have an amazing day.